Tested tonight and decided to help us take a look at some of the unusual things in his Museum of Antiquated Technology. I mean, if it still works, I wouldn't really call it antiquated, but that's just me, Mark. Take it away. You got the floor, kid.
All right. I thank you very much. I'll begin with a little bit of background. Let's see. I should come up screen sharing at some point as soon as I pick the first photo. But I have been painting since I was a very young man. My parents owned an antique shop, and me being of a technical bent, I always went looking for old telephones, old light bulbs, a couple of old radios, but I liked the early battery sets. That's what really turned me on in my early years. So you're going to see a lot of battery radios in my collection. I do repair them. I do keep an inventory of tubes. I probably have 1,000 tubes, and some of you out there probably have 10,000 tubes. But suffice to say that I have just been very, very interested in vintage technology. And I'm going to use that term as opposed to radios, because my interests span from radios to telephone to telegraph, telewoman. It was a bad joke. All right, let's just get one picture up. Let's see if one picture can come up. Let's start with that. So I'm screen sharing, and you should see a couple of engines in front of you. John, do you have screen share yet?
You should be screen. I do not see a change yet from your, but I know you had a lag time. So I see your.
I am screen share.
Yeah, we do see your Explorer window with all the top pictures, the summary photo. But you may recall there's a bit of a lag when you share that picture that it actually will paint, because it did work just a few minutes ago.
Oh, I don't think I wanted to do that, but I made one little snafu, let it go through its thing, and I apologize. So the museum, I'd love to get you a picture up. Let's see. What have I got for pictures?
Looks like
you
you
have
tried
nothing
to call
yet,
up
right?
Bruce Radio's left.
Yes. All right. I double clicked on Bruce Radio's left. I'm screen sharing. I've got the image. Let's see if it shows up with you guys.
John, I think you had to you actually, the first time it showed up, you shut off some of this old screen sharing thing. So that
I didn't. I actually almost kicked him off, but then it showed up, and that's why.
Oh, okay.
I was close, Noah, because I wasn't sure whether there was a, whether there was a synchronization problem.
Yep.
But it doesn't seem to be. Or at least I won't do it yet. I won't kick Mark off yet.
All right. Am I showing yet?
Essentially, we have like a series of images, but we do like individual slides. But we ain't got. I did have originally.
I apologize.
Well, that's all right.
If you can try and just share your desktop, but when you double click, it creates a different window, and so you'd have to select that window to share.
Right.
Oh! I bet that's it. Let me bring him down. Let me go to share. Bruce Radio's left. Okay. And share. No, you don't have it, do you?
Not yet, but there could be some lag.
There it is.
There you go.
Yep. So that's the process. There's just about a 5-second lag.
Right.
So Mark, who is Bruce? Because you're Mark,
okay.
And who's Bruce?
Bruce was N1IX. He was a very well-loved and well-known amateur radio operator who was a 40-year member of the Whitman Amateur Radio Club. The two pictures I'm going to show you first are of the collections that he bequeathed to me some years ago on his passing. and
Well, it's very
he,
nice of him.
well, he had he wanted to keep his collection intact, like most of us do. I think as we get on in years, we think of what's going to happen to all this stuff. So I actually, since Bruce and I shared this common interest, I actually offered to maintain his collection after he was gone. And son of a gun, I expected to give me a few radios, but he gave me the whole kit and caboodle. So let's start from the top left. Can you see my cursor on the picture?
Yep.
Okay. We're going to go left to right, up to bottom, and I'm going to try to explain to people what they're looking at.
Okay.
The majority of these you can see are of battery engineering construction. And I'm going to go with the very top left. This is a beautiful home built. And there's a number of home builds, but what you're going to notice is that they all have 3 tuning knobs, and that's known as the tune radio frequency radio. Regeneration, of course, was invented. Superheterodyne, superheterodyne was not invented yet. Mr. Armstrong would have to come along a few years later and straighten out all these errant manufacturers putting out all these TRFs with their occasional squeals and double stations. So that's a home belt. This I used to be able to magnify, but here we go. All right, the radio here is a typical battery TF. I think this one's a polydyne, and it employed 5 tubes. Most of them employ 5 tubes. There is a RF, excuse me, there are 3 tuned RF circuits, and then there's the RF detector and an audio amplifier, sometimes 2 audio amplifier tubes. Very simple sets, very simple to work on, but they all had one fatal flaw. The interstage transformers frequently opened up. I don't think they knew how to build a transformer that would span the years, because fully, maybe 30% of all the audio frequency transformers in all the radios that I've serviced are opened up. And sometimes I'm able to go in there and fix it. Sometimes it's an open frame transformer where you can see the leads coming out of the windings, but it is indeed a difficulty with these old radios. This, I don't remember the model numbers, so I apologize. I've had these radios for so long, and I haven't thought about them for so long that I'm a little rusty on the make and model. So this is an Atwater Kent AC set. Obviously, this one up here, it's a homebrew, but it's done along the lines of the Crossleys, of which you're going to see a number of. The next one down below here, Freed Eastman is a Freed Eastman.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and what a gigantic set. You could not imagine spacing out the electrical components in a radio, unless you started with a shopping cart. But everything is huge. Everything is very spread out. The spreading out of the components actually helps, because there was an awful problem with interstage feedback in these radios. And it produced a radio that actually performed very well. Now, of course, we understand the Atwater Kent here. The next one over on the right. Yeah, the Cathedral. I actually have a few of those, very few of those. But if I was going to have an electric radio, it would be an Atwater Kent. Now, let's see. Okay. So this one I need help with. I do not know what it is. I have not done the research. I haven't gone online. I haven't pulled the chassis numbers yet. But what a great little set. It looks like it belongs in a woman's kitchen, if you ask me. So let's get out of the
Pennsylvania Dutch version.
Pennsylvania Dutch version. Thank you. That's exactly the term that was going
The
through my
cutout
head.
for the grill cloth, it kind of looks like the Snapchat logo.
Yeah, either that or a tube. Well,
Do you
I
think that
thought
could
of
be
it.
could possibly be an Echophone?
Your guess is as good as mine right now because I have to get back up
That's
there and
fine.
play with my radios, something of which I haven't done in over a decade. I moved on to amateur radio, and now I'm on motorized bicycles to try to get out in the fresh air. So radios have taken a bit of a backseat. Now this one on the left-hand side, again, with the 3 tuners, it's a homebrew, but wow, what a beautiful job. You ought to see the soldering inside. Soldering is perfect. Everything is laid out according to the left to right version of radios of the 20s vintage. They inevitably started on the left and finished up on the right with the audio sections, left-hand sections being the RF sections. And here we see the 3 tuned TRF capacitors, but this time with verniers, which I can only imagine was an assistance to trying to tune these things. Also, the Crackle black panel, I think it's aluminum panel, is very attractive, but it kind of has an austere look to it. Definitely has a homebrew look, but boy, that is the top of the line homebrew radios. Next radio we're going to move on with is the little RCAs, and boy, they made these by the bazillions, and they made a one tube version, 2 tube version, 4 tube version. I think they had a 3 tube, and I think the biggest they got was 4 tubes. But this radio gave radio to millions of people, well, hundreds of thousands, for a very cheap price. I often see the ads of these things stacked up in a store, like Sears or something, and they're all stacked up. There has to be 100 radios in the stack, and they were on sale for some cheap price of like $59.95 or something. And they went like hotcakes, and a lot of people were introduced to radio through this set, and also the Clap Eastham, which is another famous set. Speaking of which, well, actually, I'll go down one. This is another example of an excellent homebrew radio. It's truly amazing that somebody would go through this kind of work to produce a radio that did nothing but receive AM signals, amplitude modulated signals. So this one was laid out in a hodgepodge, which shows you the difference in homebrew between something like this and then something like this to the upper left-hand side. So the guy took his box of radio parts or bought a kit. He might have built it from a kit and produced this radio. This next radio is, I think it's a Colster, and it's an early AM radio, and it's one of the first 3 one dialers, one tuning dial. And that was quite a feat. I have a few books on early American radio, and it was quite a feat to try to bring all 3 tuning capacitors together on a rack on this long shaft that runs the length behind the tuning indicator. And then they just put a drum where the dial indicator bezel is. So you've got tuning, volume, tone, and that is one of the first simple AC single dial. It's quite a feat to get to a single dial, by the way. Some of the engines, some of the radios had fairly intricate mechanical mechanisms to keep the tuning capacitors in sync with the position on the dial. The goal of which is to make sure that maximum tuning was achieved and that there was maximum regeneration of powerful closed stations. That was always a problem with early radios through the 20s. Going up, here is another Crossley. This is the deluxe version. You can see it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 tubes. And if you notice, I always thought these little holes here were for in my younger years were to introduce cooling to the cabinet. And boy, was I wrong. This is how you set your filament voltage. You would look through the peephole, you would examine the filament that was inevitably lined up behind the peephole, and then you would make the glow to nothing more than a red glow if you are using the 199 1.5 volt tubes. But if you're using the 200 201s and that series of tubes, they were a 6 volt tube, 5 volt tube, excuse me, with a 6 volt battery. So you could actually dramatically shorten the life of the tube by turning up your rheostats too much for your tube voltage. But this one's interesting because it only has 2 tuners. And I have not examined the circuit yet, but it's got to be something that's slightly different than a TRF. I would guess it's got antenna tuning on the left, and then it's got interstage tubing on the right on this big dial. And then, of course, you've got your taps, your various coil taps on the bottom. So the control part of this radio is somewhat minimized from the typical Atwater Kent. I have to assume it's a regen. So obviously, one of these, and this would probably would be the regeneration dial. Do we have any battery radio collectors in the group?
I think.
Oh my!
I think.
Wow,
I'm sure we do in the club. I don't, I'm sure there are some, but.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are some. Yeah,
only transistor radios from the 50s and 60s.
Well, we're going to go there in a little bit if my computer holds out. So now this is the land of Clap Eastman across the top and down the left-hand side of this particular picture. And you got to notice, if you look very carefully on the Clap Eastman, they sold millions of these things. They sold a ton of these Clap Eastman radios. They were designed to be a very low-cost radio, typically 1 or 2 tubes as a rule, and the cabinets were very basic. I'm going to explain the controls. So here is your tuning. Here is your tap switch. Excuse me, here is your tap switch. This is your regeneration control over here. These are all regen sets. And that may sound a little odd to those tube guys, but regeneration and squealing and retransmitting were all part of 1920s radios. If you turn the regen up too high, you broke into an oscillation, and the radio immediately became quite a powerful transmitter. If you were in a busy area like an apartment complex, chances are you were disturbing other radios in the adjoining rooms of that complex. That's how much the regeneration transmitted when they were not tuned properly. So you go to the next one down here and you say, hey, it's the same radio. Take a look at the screen. It's not. It's gone through some revisions. I think this one's a Crosley 5. Crosley 5s, Crosley 50s, 51s, 52s, 53s. They came in a number of model numbers, but they all had one common theme: a box with a Bakelite front and a few knobs. Very simple radios. Here's another one. It's also a Crosley. Now, I suspect this has, or I know, this has 2 tubes. And the reason I know that is because here's a rheostat for tube control here and a rheostat for tube control here. Excuse me, please. Let's go up to the top row of Crosleys here. You look at this one on the left and you notice it's kind of an abbreviated box, kind of scrunched in there. Well, Crosley was noted for selling these things in several configurations with minor changes to the electronics. But this is a very basic radio with your tuning, your regeneration, your taps, your tuning taps, and then finally the rheostat for adjusting the filament voltage, something you AC guys will never have to worry about. Clicking over to the right, this one's a little bit more like those on the left. And as a matter of fact, I think this one is akin to this one. I think these are both Crosley 5s, I'm going to say. Both this one and this one, but this one appears to be a little bit longer. So here's an example of 5 Crosley radios none of which are identical. And that seemed to be the Crosley theme throughout the 1920s. We get another little Crosley down here. And again, I told you all about them. This is a projector. And the reason I collect the projectors is a projector is a projector. It's not that technically advanced, although some of them do have sound in these early projectors. They do have a photoelectric eye on a couple of them that are not shown that allow the sound to be extracted from the fill track. But the machining and the construction of these machines is akin to a sewing machine. Now, I think all of us can relate to the phrase, it runs like a sewing machine.
Sure.
Or it sings like a sewing machine. These are along the same lines. These machines are virtually indestructible. They still operate today. I have a full stock of light bulbs for them, and I fire them up once in a while just for the sole purpose of watching them project a movie. Because as a matter of fact, you can see this one right here already has a movie staged up on it. But lots of fun. Now, probably my father worked at Keystone Camera for about 20 years. This is in the Keystone building on the left as you drive into Boston up the Distress Way. So that Keystone building was a piano factory at the early part of the century. And then it did various manufacturing. But then it was purchased by Keystone Manufacturing, and they both made cameras and projectors. And my father was an engineer there. So go figure my interest in cameras and projectors.
Some of the ones on the left kind of remind me of the Revere units that
yes,
in the 50s.
I have a Revere or two.
Yep, me too.
Yeah. I suspect these. I want to say these might be the Reveres, but I'm not sure. Because Keystone also made, and the way you can tell them apart is by the actual film increment drive. The increment drive is space mounted on these, and you can see it's quite a big housing right here, which housed the revolving shutter for the lamp house to time correctly with the film. So, I almost forgot right here, a venerable Grebe synchrophase. These radios came out, and they came out in, I think, 1924. And again, it was a three-tuner TRF, but they did some amazing things inside the radio. I don't know if anybody knows what a binocular coil is, but it's just two coils side by side. And it's, I would call it the equivalent of the intermediate frequency stage. And the two coils were necessary to complete the job, but typically you wound one big coil, but with any number of coils internal. But the reason for this coil, these are open air, air wound coils. The reason these coils are unique is because they were binocular, and the left side canceled out the right side, so you did not have the interstage coupling that you could get with just big, large coils. And as a matter of fact, we have to think ahead here to all the shielding that's done to all the intermediate frequency cans that are inside our AC radios. Those intermediate cans were absolutely necessary to the correct tuning and operation of a radio, because the interstages used to interfere with each other. They didn't figure that out, and I want to say they started shielding around 1928, 1927, 1928. So what they did with the old radios is they would place each coil, this one vertically, this one horizontally, and this one at a right angle to the other one in the first. And what that did is, obviously, it nulled out the coupling between the coils. And it produced a radio of excellent sensitivity, excellent volume, and it's a 5-tube set, 5-tube TRF, with vernier tuning nonetheless. They really went nuts on the mechanics of the front end of this. And that's another reason why I like these old radios. It's all mechanical. It's rare that you see a knob connected just to the tuning capacitor. Once you got into the TRFs that were pre-single knob, you were able to link them up, chain them up. This one has a ball chain, and we all know what the little ball chain is, like you put in a light fixture. And these all three are connected with ball chains and clutches. So you could set the tuning up once, probably done by the installer, and then the person tuning the radio was able to actually tune it as a one knob radio. You could turn this knob, and with the change, you'd operate this knob and this knob, and it saved you from trying to get all three knobs lined up on a single station, which to you and me would be an absolute delight. But to the general public, they thought it was a pain in the neck. Let's go to the next. Let's see if I can remember how to do this, everybody. Minimize him. Oh, even that's taking his time. So new share. Good. There we go.
Actually, you
New
could
share.
probably just hit the right angle and it may just stay in the same thing and move to the next picture.
Oh, I'm hoping you're right. I'm hoping you're right. So new share. I'll try that the next time, Bruce. I mean, Bruce, John.
George.
Oh, George.
Where's George?
Paul and Ringo.
Who's the host tonight?
Well, that was
I
just
thought
George
it was
typing in
John.
there.
Oh, I
We're
can't
just
see all
having
of
some
you
fun,
guys.
Mark.
Whoops,
Yeah.
you kicked yourself off, but that's okay. You can reshare.
Mark, how big is this area that all these things are housed in? Do you have some type of a large barn or a football stadium that you?
I think it's closer to a football stadium.
I shouldn't disturb him. He's concentrating.
His picture froze because I could see Mark has his posture has not changed 1 millimeter.
I just have a gray box for him.
Yeah, it's just a black box on my PC. I lost him.
I can see, yeah, I right now, all I just see is all the participants. So let me check if he's still there. I guess he got bounced. We still have you there, Mark.
He could be gone. He's gonna have to log back in.
Yeah, and maybe something has
Yeah,
happened.
we've lost his audio too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send him. I don't know if they'll see it. I'll send him an email, or I can try a chat. I don't know if it's gonna work, but I can try. Let's see if I can. I'll message him. Here. It's a little unfortunate. Right. I have another option here. I think I have the ability. I don't have the ability. I think I don't have that to bounce him off. That's what I normally would do. So we can get him rejoining. Somewhere along the line, we've lost synchronization with poor Mark.
I hope he's not just merrily presenting away to nobody, talking about radio.
Probably wondering why there's so much silence. I mean, I still see him in the chat, so it looks like he's
Yeah, I don't get that. I see
attached.
the name, but I don't see a picture.
Yeah.
Could be his computer froze.
Yeah, it could be that because he did admit that he's running with an older system. It may even be. I thought he said it. I could be wrong. It was an XP system, so I could be wrong though. So it's a bit aged. So maybe maybe his laptop is puffing too much here.
He needs to put it into the museum.
I think at some point, Noah, we all wind up there.
Admittedly, in today's
with my
I-
malfunctioning RCA 15X on my
I
lap.
I really wanted to
and
get
a
more of the
befuddled look on my
background.
face.
Yeah, I wanted more of the background as to like, was this all just a scam, an idea that he came up with so that like his wife wouldn't divorce him? And he said that he's actually opening a museum. He's not just cluttering the house with a bunch of this crap, or, like, how do you pull this off? Because I could hang a shingle out in front of my house and say, it's a museum, and charge people to come
I
in
don't know,
and,
maybe get some type
maybe
of
you're
a
onto
tax
something there,
advantage.
Noah.
I think there
turn
could be a
tweet.
tax advantage or something.
Yeah, exactly. Deduct the heating and electric bills and, declare a little income from the people who walk in and make some kind of a donation.
Well, I think you make it a nonprofit, right? And plus, you get some benefits there, right? Nonprofit organization, and
Yep.
and you have so many goodies that it would actually make for a pretty compelling museum there.
Now, correct me if I'm mistaken, but was Mark at some point featured on Chronicle, like WCVB?
He should be if he hasn't been.
There was,
Yeah.
I mean, I know Bruce made it onto the New Hampshire Chronicle,
Sure.
but I think at some point Mark may have been.
Okay, we
I'm not
lost.
100% sure.
Looks like we lost Mark, but maybe he's going to rejoin because he's no longer. I don't see his.
Oh yeah, now that's gone too. Yeah.
Which is probably a good thing because there's probably something locked up.
Yep.
So it's best he just rejoin. So hopefully he's just rejoining, or his laptop said, "Okay, I'm expired. I'm out."
Well, so these are the times that try host souls, I guess, so here. So let's see, let me pose this question to the group while we're trying to wait for the return of Mr. Vess. So we'll turn this into a virtual radio hospital like they have down at in Rich Lee's group when they have the open doors for all of the silly people like me to come in and say, hey, this radio just, it was working. I don't know what happened to it. So if you had a recapped RCA 15X, this is a 6-tube set, 1941. It's the set that sat on Humphrey Bogart's desk in the Maltese Falcon. It's just another reason I'm kind of enamored with it. Very nice case. So I mean, the tube seemed good, and I went from day one. It was playing great. I'm listening to all my music. I got some talk radio on in the news. Turn it on the next day. So pardon my French, but where would you start? I mean, you obviously, I think people sort of have a hierarchy of how they like to check things, and from Ray Bentliff, the esteemed New England Vintage Club member who has written several books on the topic. First, test all the tubes. Start with the most obvious of the obvious, and if you go from there, but the thing has been recapped, what do you think would be most likely to fail?
Well, testing the tubes in what way? Is it just, does it also check for shorts?
Test them on a checker and see if you get any bums.
But not just in terms of weak versus strong, but like also if there's a short or gas. Do you have that kind of a tester?
I didn't notice anything gassy, but I guess I'm wondering, maybe it could be an intermittent short in one. Like I said, some of these are pretty old.
Yep.
I probably could scrape up a set of, tested good tubes and just throw them all in and see where it goes, in case,
Well,
because my aged Heathkit checker is probably, I mean, I don't know, that could be a little suspect itself, but
I mean, if
And
it's howling, the audio section sounds pretty good. It's probably something back of that, like in the IF stages or
you
something.
think so?
Hey,
I was
Paul,
gonna ask,
what-
does the
what-
howling change volume with your volume control?
Yes.
what set is this?
Then I would
It's
go
a
and tap
RCA
the tubes.
15X. Think it could be a can, one of the IF cans?
I think I'd take the pencil and with the eraser, just tap the tube going back. That's what I'd do.
I
Start with
know,
that
I know.
because
Get
it
the
could just be a
chopsticks.
bad
See,
connection on
I'm
the
on the
socket.
right track. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. So I pulled them all today and kind of reseated them. Somewhere I had some very tiny little wire brushes that I can't seem to find anywhere. I was going to try to do like a quick cleaning, but with lights, the tube's all light. I get the dial lamp comes up, so it's not really. The thing that kind of threw me is after I got out of that sort of garbled and squealing phase, I'm my last, when I kind of said I put enough couple hours, behind diddling around with it this morning, I was just getting static across the dial. So I wasn't getting much of anything. So I'm not quite sure.
You know what you might look into, Paul, is I've got a set, which I know you have. It's like an AA6. I forget the manufacturer, but it exhibits very similar symptoms to that. And I tried troubleshooting it years ago. I wasn't really getting anywhere, but I think what's going on is there might be a bad ground. The tube sockets they're all octals, and they've got the ground ring along the outside of the tube socket, and the tube sockets are riveted to the chassis. I suspect that the ground has become resistive there, and maybe if I solder the flange of the tube socket to the chassis on the IF, because I think it's the IF stage that's oscillating. I think I'm thinking that might take care of it. I just haven't gotten to it. I've got so many other priorities here. It's not an RCA. It's a AC/DC, All-American 5+1. It's got a RF stage, I believe.
I have several of these little sets and different cases, some of which are more physically attractive than others. But, they had it down pat. And that's what I have to, they had that routine down. And that's one of the reasons I'm kind of keen on them, is that generally they're pretty dependable and I don't run into these types of problems. So, but it's like anything else, you don't know until you invest 20 hours of your life.
Is it just AM or is it AM shortwave?
It's AM only.
Okay, so it's not a band switch that's gone kind of funky.
No.
So
it does have a high-low tone control that I didn't really consider that.
I'd give that a twist around and back and forth.
It won't hurt. It's not a bad idea.
That could
What
be.
was the model again?
It's a 15X. Cute little thing.
Hey, Paul, it's Richard Lee.
Hi, Rick.
Listen, we have our winter repair clinic on the 5th of February.
Yes.
And I just looked up, you are 272 miles from Wall Township, InfoAge, our museum.
Yes.
And it'll only take you 4.5 hours to get down. So I'll put you down for an appointment that morning.
That's right.
There you go.
Why don't I just go bang my head against it for 8 hours and see if I can figure, save the gas. But I appreciate the offer, Rich.
You're very
Those
welcome.
are good ideas. Those are nice. Those are nice things that you do, and I see them written up in your broadcaster. And not only do you help out people who are more, pedestrian to the hobby and just get grandma's radio working or whatnot, but it's nice that you help out other members too, because sometimes it can be something as obvious as maybe it is something in the my high-low and toad switch.
Well, we make
That's
we
caused
make
my
a day of it, radio bagels in the morning and radio pizza in the afternoon. And usually the radios go out the door working, or if they're not, they go home with somebody and they become working. So it's something we do amongst ourselves, and also for the pedestrians that happen to find us and, come on board, and we fix a radio for them. A lot of times they become members too.
That's a good idea. It's a good concept. I think California does something like that too.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
And
they have a big building for that.
Yeah, but that'd
My
be
only
a
fear
longer,
would be,
that'd be a
Rich, I
longer
don't-
trip for you, Paul, to get there though.
I know. Do you ever run into the, like somebody comes in with some, incredibly obtuse radio that, defies, or are most things relatively manageable that people
Well,
bring in?
let me tell you a story about the lady that called me and made an appointment, who was not a member, and she had a clock radio she wanted us to fix for her. So that's kind of pedestrian. We can do that.
Simple enough, right? Yeah.
Probably needs a cord, maybe needs some, filter capacitors changed. So she came by, and she came into the room where we were meeting and had our repair clinic going. And she said, "Oh, I have the clock radio for you." I said, "Okay, fine. We're a little busy right now, but come on, bring it in, and we'll take a look at it." And she says, "Well, I'm going to need help." And I said, "Well, what do you mean, lady? You need help? It's a clock radio." She says, "Yeah, but it's in the back of my pickup truck." I said, "Well, what do you mean in the back of your pickup truck?" So I went out, and sure as hell, there it was, a clock radio, a big grandfather clock with a radio in it in the back of a
One of
pickup
those
truck.
big Philco type
Jeez.
jobs.
Yes.
There you go.
But we did get it working for her.
Nice.
Just not quite what you expected.
No.
Paul, I'm a big fan of signal tracers, especially with something that you can hear like that. And I would tend to just take the probe of a signal tracer and work your way back from the speaker until you hear that problem go away or get worse or something. It would help
you hear a signal.
Yeah. Well, that's what they teach you in the. I have a friend who sent me some interesting little books, and I guess they're Philco factory publications, and if they were done for service technicians, they were done for guys just getting started out. But they go through the whole thing as far, try to find the correct stage, which I guess is what you're referring to, Tom. Where is it? And you kind of go through they break the radio down into the sections, and maybe it's time I pull it out again and take a little look at it, and try to go back that way through it. So.
Yeah, maybe you lost an oscillator so that you're not getting down conversion. Who knows? It could be anything.
Yeah.
I'm just glad it's not a Grundig.
with a missing coil.
That's right. Is that a nice part set you have behind you there, John? I could take a coil or out of that thing.
Unfortunately, the one you're looking for, that is a Telefunken Concertino 5384W. That's from '62. It doesn't have the variable equalizer that the Grundigs had, which was sort of their claim to fame, that kind of set them apart from the rest of the gang. Telefunken, resorted to the sound register keys,
right?
That they, and this one has simply two, and this is an early stereo, by the way. It's it does stereo. It doesn't have an FM multiplexer, but it does have stereo input, and it does support two additional auxiliary speakers. So I have a pair of all Fox Strahler RS1s that I need to hook up to it when I get around to it.
Yeah. That weird coil I'm talking about, though, right? It's like a little round black thing, and a screw goes through the middle of it, and a nut, and it's like bolted to a little flange. And there's two of them are supposed to be in the set, and only one is present.
That's weird that it's gone. Someone rip it out or something?
Or something. I don't know. Or the screw loosened up and it fell out, or who knows? These things are all 50 years old now. You never know who's been in there doing whatever.
Yeah, in fact, I'm sorry, John. I meant to respond to your email, but I was thinking maybe I wonder if Ross has any parts that's sitting in his barn.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And of course, I'm sure over the years, I've probably thrown away half a dozen of those little coils in, like, old chassis that I
Yeah.
parted out, and oh, that's never going to fall off. What do I need one of those for?
If I had a Grundig spare set, it'd be yours. I just don't have many Grundigs in my collection. I have a few of the newer stuff that don't have the.
Again, this
variable.
has like 5 distinct knobs as well as push button key functions
Yes.
that say like orchestra, hi-fi, blah, blah. So it's only, I think you told me once already what the big long word that begins with a W, like Waschlung or Wunsch.
Oh, it essentially means the sound of your wishes. Typical German.
Okay.
Long words for short.
Well,
That's something to do with Nietzsche and
yeah. Well, that's the key that apparently has that coil in the circuit
attached to it.
when you push that button. So I just don't push that button and the radio sounds great, because you can still use the equalizer knobs if you're not using those buttons.
That's what in fact I was just going to ask you to find out, how much impairment you have without it. So you at least have some reasonable function.
Oh yeah, it sounds great. It's just, it bugs me that it's not there. It's
yeah, and it's they only offer that in certain the higher end models, because the lower ends would just either fixed keys or none.
Right.
Probably have the variable, tune to go from just bassy to a little more treble. That's so we had to go find you one. Every so often the problem is I don't see many parts sets in eBay. I don't really pay that close attention to eBay. I'm only on there on and off, but that's always a fallback. But you might be better off keeping an eye on like Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and maybe finding someone's part set that they're just trying to get rid of.
Or just talk to send an email to Ross or something. And
Ross is probably your best bet in terms of within the club, because he has your best chance of seeing something sitting in his barn. Because it'd be yours if I had something for you. I just don't.
Again, it's not mission critical. The thing plays just fine the way it is. I mean,
used to be a fellow on the Radio Attic who sort of specialized in import sets, and I haven't seen any postings from him in several years, so I fear the worst. His name was Leo Van Houten, and he always had,
I've heard that. I've seen that name.
Yep, he's always had Grundig or Lowe or Normandy. Never had your GEs and your Zeniths and that type of stuff. So, but the nice thing about dealing with Ross is if he's not too busy to check your email. He's got so much. I mean, he can't in a lifetime use half of it. So he's usually pretty willing to give you a good deal if you want to get something as a part set. If he doesn't have the part, himself, that he's similar to your experience, when he's broken down different sets to be organ donors, so to speak, he could have that in a little plastic bag somewhere where he keeps those.
Yep.
Just don't know. He's a rare resource in this hobby. I don't really know of anybody else anywhere who's sort of got that specialty, and it just could be that I haven't been around enough. But I seldom see folks who have quite as much stuff as he does. So anyway, it's a good resource, and he's also if he's had and he's fixed it, he's more than happy to tell you how he did it. So
for sure.
So any word from Mr. Vess? I mean,
no, I
doesn't look like it.
He's vanished. Okay.
I could check my email, see if you send me an email. Let me
take a look, and maybe share or Rich, how's the DX contest going? I keep hearing I see the things in your email group back
Paul,
and forth.
Paul, you threatened to join it. You can. You did say
Well,
something.
I think I'm better off, maybe not taking the official. I actually had
You know,
I
you
spoke
could
to
have,
Al
Paul, you
at
could have
great
started,
lengths.
you could have made this more interesting about your burned out radio. You could have said that you were using that the DX all night and it went kaput on you because of the catches you were getting from
The intense strain.
Cuba.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yes.
You could-
It's not a bad, I would have to character. I've had AA6s, was a Silvertone AA6. And I had a nice little antenna, I still able to climb trees and do all kinds of, neat stuff out on the roof. And I would, routinely, Detroit, Philadelphia, I get all the New York stations. I used to get Gene Shepard live. There's some good stuff. And, with the proliferation of stray RF and all types of interference sources, et cetera, the little humble 6 tube is less and less of a DXer, but
Well, it's all about the antenna. And if you can have an antenna that will know out your local stations, your powerhouse stations, you make a difference.
Yeah, I would tell you this, that we have a little, it's kind of run by an eccentric guy up in, actually, he has a series of stations now, which I guess is even more frightening. So he's based in Bath, Maine. He has a station called WJTO, which is 730. That's an AM daytimer, 2,500 watts. He then has in Cambridge, of all places, because he pays through the nose for the site for the little tower, he has a 250 watt AM station, AM 740. So just we go up the dial a little bit. And he also bought a station down at the Cape, on Cape Cod now, WBAS. And he essentially simulcasts out of the main studio. But so, I'll pick up the 250 watt daytime very well on, most 5 and 6 tube sets given where I am. And I'll just use, if it has a loop antenna, fine, or I might, enhance that a little bit. I'll use a Turk or the select antenna. But, I get nice sound, I get pretty good fidelity. And, but in the evenings, I'll go up and down the band and I'll get, 1500 out of Washington. I'll get, 770, I'll get 1010. Obviously 1010 comes up very good. Occasionally I'll get 880. That seems to be a little bit trickier, but I'll get, I'll get Buffalo, I'll get Cleveland. They're okay. They're not bad. But, I think the thing I run into too is I have some power lines out back, and I have a lot of neighbors with a lot of gadgets that I think cause me problems because occasionally I'll get these intermittent problems that, seem to go away when everybody goes to sleep at night. So, but yes, it's, how's the propagation been? What's the catches been like, Rich? How are guys been
It
doing?
hasn't been good.
No.
The weather hasn't been good. Maybe tonight is good. When you get down into the single digits and it's a clear sky, it's much better. We've had some nasty weather, as you have too. That doesn't help.
Yeah. And, maybe something on the dawn or dusk, the gray line. I saw Joe Devonshire had some positive reports. He was up early in the morning up in Maine and was getting some good stuff. Sometimes proximity to the water can be helpful too.
Oh, absolutely. The closer to the water, the better. Yeah. I DX from the end of the North Fork of Long Island, and it's very good that way.
Yeah. Good stuff. So, John, what's anything from our guest?
No, I checked the email. I didn't see anything. So maybe he's still struggling. So it may be we may have to do is reschedule Mark for a future call and see.
Which is perfectly fine. From the look of the thumbnails I saw on the screen, I think we could probably do him every week for a year.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He had an awful lot of content.
I think
he may have bitten off a little more than he could chew, but
what I'm thinking about in the background is maybe what I'll have them do, if possible, is find a way to send me the photos. What I could do is share from my laptop and orator, and that because that way it might be his and maybe his PC breathed his last breath during this call.
We're very fortunate in that we have a good group, and it is a little bit of a knack to do your blabbing and your explanations as well as run all the controls, so it might even be a little bit better for him have it come up and he can do his commentary and,
Yeah.
let
Yeah,
somebody else worry
I'm
about
happy
the
to do that.
details.
It's sometimes easier, it takes the load off as well. Plus also if the computer is up for the job, then it makes it just even that much easier. But maybe that's all right. I'll work with Mark offline.
Yep, we will do a reschedule. Gentlemen, we will see you next time, which will be February at this.
Right, and there'll be Jay from Antioch, right?
Yes, Antioch Radio. I don't know if anybody's, I don't know why, but sometimes I'll wake up semi-comatose, and I've been enjoying the Whistler on Antioch Radio. I always like the Whistler because they have a nice twist at the end. It's sort of a Signal Oil Company wants you to think of us at every. I mean, I don't know. Something about that program, but yeah. So Jay runs Antioch Radio up in the Midwest, and not only does he run an internet old-time radio station, he also provides content to some smaller independent broadcasters as well. He's a neat guy. He's a software writer. It'll be fun to kind of see how he does this. I have some ideas, but it'll be interesting because he has some commentary in there as well. So I get the idea that it's not completely computerized, but conversely, I can't see how he could spend as much time live doing some of these announcements and some of these interspersions of his voice that we get. So, and he's also a collector and is kind of an interesting radio background as well. So I'm sure he'll give us the full rundown, and maybe he'll get a few more listeners after he meets with us. So in any event, I'm going to run, John, as I mentioned earlier in my email to you. And guys, we'll see you next time. Sorry for the technical difficulties this evening, but that's what happens in live radio or TV or computer or Zoom.
Yeah, you have a hiccup.
That's right. I only wish these things would happen at work and the boss would bomb out, but that never happens.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, before you leave, or
Yes.
just gentlemen in general,
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I was looking for a fellow named Vern. He's the radio mechanic, has this channel on YouTube, the Radio Mechanic. He's out of New Hampshire. He's very, very good. You learn a lot from him, as a matter of fact. But I don't know of anybody that knows him. Do any of you folks know him? I don't know his last name. His first name is Vern, the Radio Mechanic, and he does join. He does join the
Interesting.
The Nevic. I think the Nevic. What is the Hamfest up north?
Nearfest.
Nearfest. Yeah, he's always there. He says he's always there. Does this ring a bell?
Tom is a regular Nearfest guy, and I know a couple of other guys who go up there quite a bit. But is it Vern with an E, or like Vern, like short for Vernon? Do you think?
I think he focuses primarily on repairing Collins equipment. Is that the guy you're thinking of? He walks around.
He'll repair anything, Tom. He's
okay.
And
but
his,
he walks.
his channel is very interesting.
Walks around in a white lab coat.
No,
is that the guy?
I know who you mean, Tom.
He's
I
about
know
70
who you mean.
years old.
That's.
Well, let's see. Is he an older man with white hair and glasses, about 70? Because that's about 3.5 million people.
The guy in the lab coat is Ted Robinson. He's a club member.
Yes.
I know Ted. Yes.
Now, anyway, if you guys, check out the Radio Mechanic on YouTube.
All right.
It's his channel.
I'll see if we can get you a lead on him if you're trying to track him down. Does he have?
Yeah, I would. I'd like to talk to him. Yeah.
All right. And on that note, gentlemen, have a great evening. Maybe go pick up some good catches. You now have your next homework assignment is to go DX for the next hour.
There you go.
Report everything to Al Clace.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
See you in a few weeks.
Where's the bailout button? Oh, there it is.